Thank you so much for that fantastic introduction, Christian. Uh, my name is Jesse Bradley, and this is Storytime with Jesse Bradley. So, how this works is I improvise an actual story or essay. Because the first time I did this 2 weeks ago, they turned out to be more essays than stories. So, a couple of things that I need to tell you up front. One, I don't prepare any of these things in advance. I have no idea what I'm going to be talking about until I figure out there's something that is inspiring me and I'm stitching together a story or an essay as I'm doing this. Because of this, um, because of this, I do just content warnings. I may delve into difficult subjects as a result of this, since I have no idea where this goes. So since I'm playing to the top of my intelligence, there might be some difficult subjects that are brought up. So just wanted to give that particular warning. Rather than just like try to go to Facebook or ask folks for a get, I actually was listening to the set, the jam, and there was a line that stood out to me that I'm going to use as my thread today. And it was, I choose the afterlife versus I choose the real life. So here we go. It's November 2012, and my boss has just informed me that I'm going to start needing to work more in Lake Mary. So Lake Mary is a city, a town about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on traffic, away from Orlando, Florida. So at this point in my life, I'm not driving. I have a learner's permit. Driving is a huge fear of mine. It has terrified me since I was 8 years old, and my mom and my stepdad got into a car accident, and I never really had any desire to learn how to drive as a result of that. And I commuted by bus. Only 3 hours and three buses to get to Lake Mary. So, and I did this commute for 3 weeks once, where I woke up at 5 in the morning to get there by 9 in the morning, and then to teach the full day, and then like have to beg for people to get me home in order for me to have a sort of a life. So I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to start working in Lake Mary. I have a learner's permit. I'm terrified of driving. What if I learn how to ride a moped instead? And I look up how to, because I remember back when I think about like 32 at this point in my life. And I remember like maybe 15, as a teenager, seeing like other like teenagers I knew on mopeds. And I thought that, okay, if you have a learner's permit, you can just go buy a moped and ride it, because that would be enough. And I do my research to find out what's going on. And it turns out that you need a motorcycle license to even just have a moped. And I'm like, okay, crap. And I've been rationalizing my whole life about not driving, because people don't understand the nature of fear. So I'm like, yeah, driving's expensive. You have to pay the gas, the maintenance and insurance, all of this stuff. And I'm just going, maybe I can learn how to ride a moped instead. Maybe I can go ahead and get my motorcycle license and I can get a moped. And maybe I can go ahead and get my motorcycle license and I can get a moped. And that would allow me to go, or from Orlando to Lake Mary, 30 to 40 minutes versus the 3 hours. This totally makes sense. This is going to be a brilliant plan. This is going to absolutely work. So I look up and I see the National Safety Council does indeed have motorcycle lessons, where if you complete a weekend with them and pass a written and a driving test, you can go to the DMV and get your motorcycle license. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to do this. This is going to be great. This is going to be awesome. And I sign up for the weekend so that way I can do this without interrupting my very busy work schedule. So I this is a Saturday morning at the National Safety Council. And we're all in this little like dingy dungeon of a room. And we are shown a video that just hypes the freedom of motorcycling. It's a bunch of these white people on mostly Harley Davidsons. I think maybe a couple of racing bikes, and they're just racing around, just driving around, just praising. Our proctor, our instructor, explains the rules: written test, driving test, so on and so forth. And we're just going to get right into the practicing, learn how to riding a motorcycle. So I hitchhike with one of my classmates, and we get to where the course is. The practice course for the National Safety Council for the motorcycle licenses is in a parking lot of a concert venue. And just outside, just parked on the far end of this parking lot are truck trailers. So right next to this concert venue, there is a dairy. There's an actual dairy that produces milk. The actual district that we're doing this in is called the Milk District because of the dairy. And what's really cool about this whole experience is you don't have to bring your own motorcycle, thank goodness, because that would be a little bit weird you're learning how to drive. So you got to bring your own motorcycle. In this case, I don't have to bring my own motorcycle. It's great. And they're pulling out the loaner vehicles that they're going to use. And I'm given this scratched up, beaten to shit black moped. It has definitely been through some things. And meanwhile, everyone else gets motorcycles. So I am the only person in this class that is learning to ride a moped. Everyone else is being a grown-up and they're learning to ride a motorcycle, which apparently has gears that you have to shift with your feet. I had no idea about this, how motorcycles work at all. And meanwhile, mopeds, they only have one gear. They have go. You do the throttle. All you have to do is just, move it up, move it down, and you just go. And the instructor, a lot of his instructions are to the motorcyclist because they have to switch gears with their feet, and I don't. But I'm following along with them. I'm turning. We're practicing weaving through cones, practicing going up and down through straight lines. We're doing all of these things, and I'm okay. I have this motorized thing underneath me that could potentially, that's real faster than I really thought it would be. But I'm doing it. I'm like, I'm going to get my motorcycle license. I'm going to get this moped. It's going to make my life a lot easier. So we stop, we break for lunch, and my back is just drenched in sweat in November. It's like 60 something degrees. I'm trying to calm myself down. I'm hyping myself up. I'm like, you can do this, Jesse. You can do this. You can fucking do it. You can absolutely do it. So we get back and we're practicing doing more turns. And as I'm in the middle of a turn, I'm going a little too fast. And I'm panicking. And instead of me hitting hitting the brakes with my hands, I start stomping the floorboard of the moped, thinking I can just use my feet to stomp this. And about a second later, I go head first into one of the truck trailers, and me and the moped slide underneath. And immediately everyone else stops what they're doing and they rush over to me. And they're checking on me. And the instructor's looking down, and he's going, don't move. Don't move. We're getting you an ambulance. And the ambulance shows up about 10 minutes later. And they look down on me and they're asking me these questions okay, so what's today's date? Who is the president? Do you know where you are? And what hospital would you like to go to? Barack Obama. It's Saturday, November 10th. I'm in the parking lot at the plaza. And I want to go to the downtown hospital, the really, really, really good one. And as they're getting me onto the gurney and taking me back to, they're taking me in the back of the ambulance. I actually asked one of the EMPs, I'm like, hey, does anything look broken? And the EMT goes, I'm sorry, but my x-ray vision isn't working today. And I actually laugh because I'm like, that's pretty funny. I'm just in a lot of pain and I'm trying to figure out, did anything break? What's going on? So after a couple of hours, since I wasn't dying, my neck clearly wasn't broken. I finally get my x-rays done. And it turns out that I have a fractured left collarbone. And they give me some really weak Percocet. So the thing about this particular hospital is throughout of Jesus helping the medical staff doing things. One of my favorite paintings in this hospital is a surgical team. And this particular surgical team, they have a patient open. And Jesus is pointing to the person's spot in the body where the surgeon should cut. Instead of Jesus performing the miracle of healing and going, boop, done, it's more like, hey, I'm going to empower you to perform medicine, and you're going to go ahead and you're just going to do what you need to do. So because of their beliefs in religion, I'm given the weakest possible Percocet. It's weak. It maybe dulls my pain from like a 7 to a 5. And the only person I know who's close by and who can get me out of the hospital is my mom. So I call my mom and very nonchalantly I go, hey, I broke my collarbone while learning to ride a moped. Can you come and get me? And can you come and get me? And my mom, in her thick Bronx accent, even though we've been living in Orlando since 1985, goes, oh my fucking God, I'll be right fucking there. And my mom gets me. And we're in the car. And as she's taking me to the pharmacy so I can get more Percocet, just in case, because they gave me like a couple to start with and then like more to take over 10 days, just in case. My mom looks over to me and she goes, Jess, I could teach you how to drive. So my mom, when I was a teenager, she wanted me to drive so bad. She desperately wanted me to drive. But she didn't want to teach me to drive. I'm too fucking impatient. She always said. She was hoping that important life lesson would be outsourced. Like when my upstairs neighbor taught me how to ride my bike. And my 3rd grade teacher taught me how to tie my shoes after school because I kept being made fun of for wearing Velcro until I was the age of 8. And my mom actually was going to give me her old car, when her parents were going to give them their old car. I almost died. Trying to do this myself. And it's taking me like almost dying for her to finally like actually teach me. And I know also too that she is the most impatient person in the world, that we would argue. She would be like, look, like if I do anything like not her way, she would go, you're fucking doing it wrong. And then just do it herself rather than like correct me. So I've already have survived like one thing at that point. And I look over to her and I'm like, absolutely no thanks. So I eventually actually moved closer to Lake Mary because I ended up taking a promotion, and I don't learn how to drive. I figure out that I can take a bus, I can commute by bicycle, which is great because I'm doing 2 things at once. I'm working out, I'm commuting to work, I've still got this figured out. This is fantastic. So it is November 10th, 2013. It's a year after this, about a year after this happens. And I'm dating, I have met shortly after the accident. or sorry, after the mistake that I made of trying to learn how to ride a moped, I met Janine. We met in December of 2012. We have hit it off. She knows about my fear of driving, and she understands it and she accepts it. And we've been together for almost a year at this point. And I'm riding my bicycle on the sidewalk because, fun fact about Florida, we are the deadliest state for cyclists and pedestrians. We kill more cyclists and pedestrians than any other state. We are number one in that. And I'm riding on the sidewalk because I'm thinking this is going to be safer. Cars should be obeying the rules, the law, the road rules and all of that. I should be fine. So I'm commuting to work and I'm riding on the sidewalk and I'm crossing the street. I have the right of way. When all of a sudden I hear this car engine rev. And I look over and it's this sun-faded Saturn. And rather than me like, keep going, I am panicking because this car is going to hit me. And is pushing me down. It's me down. It's pushing me down until he realizes that he is actually running me over and he stops. And he stops and he gets out of the car and he goes, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "Should we call the police?" And fortunately, there's someone behind him who's already called the police, who has seen that everything has happened. And she's like, "I'm calling the police." I'm like, "Yeah, call the police. Absolutely call the police." And because of where I'm living, the police response time is 2 minutes. That because it's like basically like a small like subsection of Lake Mary where it's like the police station is right down the street. So immediately there's like, oh, exciting action is happening. This is fantastic. This is great. Things are getting done. And I'm texting my boss as I was supposed to train folks for eight like managers on stuff for 8 hours. And they go, "Hey, yeah, I just want to let you know I'm going to be a little bit late because I just got hit by a car. As soon as I get this straightened out, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to go into work." And my boss goes, "You should probably go to the emergency room." And I'm like, "Nah, I'm fine. I'm absolutely riding high on adrenaline." And the dude gets ticketed because he's an idiot. He ran a stop sign. I had a right away. The person behind him was the witness and is an excellent witness. And I go to work and I end up training like folks for 8 hours because I have come from a previous team where you can do it all. We can do it. You do things no matter what. There's no such thing as no. I have trained through flus. I have trained through laryngitis. Twice or 3 times in a single year. I'm so used to just rolling with the pain that I'm like, oh, getting hit by a car, getting tapped by a car, this is nothing. And I told this story to some coworkers of mine about getting hit by a car because we were talking about the need to take a break for yourself, the need to take care of yourself. And I was explaining to them that I came from this terrible team where while this particular manager developed me and I'm in the career that I'm at, and because of this particular manager, it's because of that old behavior is why I went to work after getting tapped by a car versus like going to take care of myself. And one of my coworkers was lamenting about having to take 2 weeks off because she has to go get a root canal and be out. And I'm like, the work is going to be there. You come first. And as I'm talking about this, I'm realizing that Janine didn't come over after all of this happened. We were dating for we're almost a year at this point. I was saving up to get an engagement ring. And I'm realizing as I'm telling the story and thinking about it, she didn't come over to check on me. She didn't stay the night to check on me, like to console me, to be like, are you okay? And I didn't think about that at that point. And maybe she did, because memory is fallible, but I would have remembered something like that. And the reason why I'm just thinking about it is it's about because of the last time I saw my grandmother alive, in 2012, before I met Janine. My grandmother uh, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she actually came to my first wedding, and you could tell that she was already starting to lose her memory and whatnot. And my mom was telling me my grandfather wasn't taking care of her, and I didn't believe her until I was in New York for a wedding, and my mom was like, you should go see your grandparents. It's been a while, and I haven't seen them since my wedding. So I go, and I go to their house in New Jersey, and I walk in, and there's my grandfather. And my grandfather goes, Gene, Jesse's here. And my grandmother is in this dirty white nightgown. My mom has been trying to get her into like long-term care for a long time, for a while, and he had the resources to do it. And I couldn't believe that my grandfather did this to my grandmother, that they were married for over 50 years, 50, 60 years at this point. And he wasn't taking care of her. And it made me realize that as I thinking about this, that love is not about the good stuff. It's not about the romance, the joy. How like you're with the person that you should be with is that they're there for you when you're at your worst moments, when you're near, choosing either the life versus the afterlife, that they're going to take care of you when you've almost like died, you've almost hurt yourself and or gotten really, really hurt. And here I am, like almost 9 years later. And I wish I would have, I sometimes it takes a long time to really realize that to learn these particular things the hard way, that love is not enough. Like it's the reason why you never, ever, ever see like what comes after happily ever after, is just because happily ever after, there's some bad stuff that happens, and it's either you are there or you're not there at all. So yeah, almost dying, like almost getting my second near death experience. I wish I would have realized sooner that who I ended up with marrying wasn't the right person, because they weren't there for me in the worst time, one of the worst times. So yeah, I choose life. Thanks.